So here we finally are at our final Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus Du Plessis breakdown. And man, oh man, is this one going to be convoluted. I mean, the sheer amount of conflicting stylistical tendencies when you look at these guys' past fights. I mean, it's absurd. You got a guy in Khamzat Chimaev who, to me, I think he might just be the best grappler the sport's ever seen. I think his double leg is obviously the fastest the sport's ever seen. His ability to control you from the body lock is insane. His ability to be constantly threatening for your back and threatening for submissions, while at the same time reshooting on you the second you finally escape his grasps. On top of the fact that he seems to just completely fall off of a cliff after the very first round, which we will discuss whether or not that can be the case for this fight. And then you got Dricus Du Plessis, a guy who is such an athletic specimen, who all you really got to do is look at this guy's forearms to understand what you're dealing with here. I mean, Dricus Du Plessis is yacked out of his mind. Dricus Du Plessis, I have watched the video of him running on the beach in that Speedo on repeat since this fight's been announced. I've been watching that one over and over and over and over and over again. And I've been watching it over and over and over and over again because obviously to break down stylistically the physicality between these two guys is very, very important. And obviously Dricus has a lot of physicality, man. He's got a lot of physicality. But also, like, this guy will pull mount sometimes. He will choose to sit down and pull his opponent on top of him into full mount. All right? I mean, this is insane. There is so many conflicting things with this matchup, and to me, that is what makes it all the best. And I will say, after this final round of film study, a lot has changed for me when looking at this matchup. A lot has changed to me. But before we continue, I wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Bare Mattress. Listen, guys, sleep is important. If you're like me, you're training hard, you're lifting all the time, sleep is probably the most vital component to recovery, to progression, to just being able to train more. And listen, I had been using the same old mattress for years, and I legitimately had no idea how bad it was. I was completely in the dark how bad it was until I got my Bare mattress, and after just a few nights, I was waking up way more well-rested, way less sore. I was able to train more. I was able to do more. I was in a better mood every single day. Like, I could not believe how much of a game changer it was. And look, it's so nice because you take a sleep quiz, you answer a few questions, they recommend to you the perfect mattress based on your needs. It arrives to your door in a box, you take it out, cut the plastic, it expands all on its own, and that's it. Setup is now completely done. They also offer a 120-day trial period. That is 3 months to test out this mattress and make sure you love it. And I haven't even told you guys the best part yet. Go to baremattress.com, use my code MMAShay, and get 40% off of your mattress. Like, legitimately, I cannot recommend this brand enough. It has completely changed my life, and I know it can do the same for a lot of you guys. Bare Mattress just recently ran a survey of over 300 recent customers. 82% reported an improvement in their sleep quality, and 95% of those would recommend Bare Mattress to a friend. Again, guys, it is a no-brainer. Go to baremattress.com, use my code MMAShay, get 40% off your new mattress, and transform your life. Thank you again to Bare Mattress for sponsoring this video. First things first, when you look at Dricus Du Plessis, I think, of course, a lot of people make a lot of jokes about the guy. They say that, he's not very technical, he's not very good, he kind of sucks, yet somehow he keeps winning fights, and they chalk it up to the fact that he has Toon Force. But it's not even just fans. Like, actual fighters say this. Like, Steve Ercik called him a fucking 6 out of 10 when it came to fighting ability. The truth is, I actually think Dricus is actually pretty technical, believe it or not. And I think looking at his last fight with Sean Strickland is all you really need to see to understand that. I mean, look, Sean Strickland is one of the best defensive strikers the sport's ever seen, and Dricus outpointed him over 5 rounds. And it came from the fact that Dricus had an answer to Sean's pressure, and he had an answer to Sean's jab. every single jab that Sean would throw, Dricus was parrying it. He was parrying it, landing his own jabs, parrying it, landing low kicks off of the jab. I mean, there were moments where he was slipping Sean's strikes to land an overhand over the top. I mean, he was very, very well prepared for this style. He was landing the head kick very beautifully. Obviously, for the most part, Strickland negates a lot of head kick opportunities because he's constantly pressuring you. Well, he couldn't really pressure Dricus, and Dricus' ability to snap his high kicks off of his lead leg is kind of crazy. I mean, he essentially put a technical masterclass on Sean Strickland. Obviously, though, a big reason for that is Sean Strickland's game, while being effective, is kind of linear. Essentially, he needs to pressure and he needs to land the jab. Well, Dricus had an answer for the pressure, and after their very first fight where he got busted up with the jab, he came into that rematch with an answer to it. Now Sean's game's completely gone, and that fight ended up how it ended up. But even past the Strickland fight, you look at the Robert Whittaker fight. He approached that Robert Whittaker fight with a very specifically tailored game plan. Almost every fight prior, Dricus would just rush at everybody with strikes. Well, for the first time ever, he went into that Robert Whittaker fight, and he didn't do that. His entire goal was to catch Whittaker with a jab as he was blitzing in, because obviously Whittaker's game is to blitz at you. And this strategy worked beautifully. I mean, Whittaker was having a fair amount of success early in that fight, but the very first jab he got caught by, right as he was moving in, you see his legs buckle briefly. And then from that point onward, the momentum completely shifted, and he ended up getting manhandled and then finally dropped with the jab as he was blitzing in. I mean, look, Dricus Du Plessis, I understand he makes fun of people who call him technical. I mean, obviously, I don't think Dricus is having any outside foot battles with anybody, but he has absolutely shown the ability to tailor his skill set to a person he's fighting and change his game plan around. So when you take that ability and mix it in with the fact that Dricus Du Plessis is so much quicker and more fast twitch than somebody as big as he is supposed to be. I mean, look, take someone like Marvin Vettori, who, the thing that makes Marvin Vettori good is that he's big and he's strong and he's insanely durable. But, the trade-off for being that big and durable and strong is that he's kind of slow. When he's lumbering at Adesanya with strikes, Adesanya just is completely unbothered by it, just slides away every single time, no problem. Well, Dricus Du Plessis is just as big, just as durable, but he's fucking diving at Adesanya with straight shots and cracking him. He's jumping onto takedowns, diving on submissions. He's essentially a fast twitch Marvin Vettori who can throw high kicks and spinning back kicks. That is a world championship caliber fighter right there. And that is difficult to deal with. But now, looking at Khamzat Chimaev, I think if you were to ask most people their thoughts on this fight, here's what they would tell you. They're going to say, well, it's either Khamzat Chimaev is going to submit him round one, or he's going to lose in the later rounds. I do have some problems with that. Obviously, the last video I made on this subject was purely in-depth looking at Khamzat's finishing ability. We looked at the Gilbert Burns fight, we looked at the Kevin Holland fight, we looked at the Usman fight and the Whittaker fight, and all of those sort of finishing sequences to deduce Khamzat's pure submission ability is a little bit overhyped. If you want like some real in-depth examples, I would watch that video. But to sort of summarize, Khamzat Chimaev, throughout the Kamaru Usman fight, he was on Usman's back. Obviously, Usman was giving up his back, and Khamzat was way too high the entire time. He was way too high. His head on a lot of these sequences is almost touching the floor. Usman should have tripoded here to try to get Khamzat to either fall off the top or burn out his legs holding on. Instead, Usman elected to try to stand up, which just gave Khamzat an actual better position to sink the choke in. He would have finished Usman here if Usman didn't slam him, right? You look at the Robert Whittaker fight. That finishing choke should not have happened, obviously. Whitaker had a pre-existing injury with his bottom teeth, and that is why the second Khamzat put this choke on, he started panic tapping. That's not normal. When you get choked over the face, even against guys way bigger than you, like this example right here, there's no panic tap. You'll get a tap, but you're not going to be freaking out panic tapping the second the choke gets slapped on. And of course, Khamzat didn't even have the back fully secured. He only had one hook in. Look at when Dricus fought Israel Adesanya in round 2. Dricus tries to choke him right here. Why doesn't it work? Look, he has the exact same control as Khamzat did. He only had one hook in, therefore there was nothing stopping Adesanya from turning to his side. Dricus lost the chest to back connection, and he loses the choke. They were in the exact same position here. The only difference is Whitaker started panic tapping the second the choke got slapped on. The choke shouldn't have happened. But my point with this is, I want to be very clear, it's not to say that Khamzat can't finish you. He can. But to me, that is not what I am scared of looking at these sequences. I don't watch these two sequences and go, oh man, you better watch out for Khamzat's finishes round 1. Not quite what I'm looking at. The absolute elite, terrifying aspect of Khamzat's game here is the athleticism of the shot, the control from the body lock, and the fucking reshots to put you back down if you escape. That is a serious problem. And if Khamzat can keep up this Whitaker pace for 3 rounds, holy shit. That is what I'm scared of. And now that leads us into the cardio question, right? Prior to the Robert Whitaker fight, Khamzat promised us that he was no longer overtraining. He said he's now taking protein and vitamins now, which the fact that he wasn't doing that before is crazy, and that he said his cardio was going to be way better this time around. Again, we didn't get to see it. But on top of all of this, Khamzat is now training with a legendary strength and conditioning coach. Somebody who, TJ Dillashaw talked a lot about in the past and just said that, look, any kind of cardio you're doing is bullshit. You need to train with this guy in his garage. He will get you right. I mean, we're just kind of at an unknown here. I don't know exactly how Khamzat's cardio is going to look. I really don't know. All signs are pointing to massive improvements. But it can kind of be anybody's guess exactly what that looks like. Because frankly, it doesn't really matter how good your cardio is if you decide to go full kamikaze round 1. If Khamzat decides to approach this Dricus fight like he approached the fight with Kevin Holland, I don't really care how good your cardio is. No human being can sprint as hard as they can and last 25 minutes. Like, you just can't do that, all right? But I do think overall, looking at the Robert Whitaker fight, for example, it seemed like Whitaker was the one spending more energy than Khamzat was. Whitaker was the one scrambling and fighting tooth or nail to stay safe, whereas Khamzat was just riding the position. So, in terms of the grappling now, what does Dricus Du Plessis need to theoretically do to stop it? Well, step 1. You have to keep the fight out in the open. You have to. And the reason why is this. Khamzat Chimaev's double leg, again, is so fast and so ferocious and so low, the only thing you can do is sprawl. That is it. Sprawl or just back the fuck up and don't let him get a hold of your legs. See, Whitaker did not do this. He got pressured before Khamzat shot. So because he was backed up to the fence, he couldn't sprawl. The only choice he had was to try to dig underhooks. That doesn't work with how low Khamzat is. You have to sprawl. You have to get the hips back. You're not going to hike him up with underhooks on a power double leg that low to the ground. So he gets taken down, and now he's in the fucking washing machine, pretty much. But look at this sequence right here from the Kamaru-Usman fight. Why does Usman stop this double leg? Because Khamzat shot way out in the open, and Usman was just able to back up, and Khamzat didn't even get a hold of his legs. That has to be step one. And of course, Dricus Du Plessis is very good at not allowing himself to get pressured because of how big he is. But I actually do think that there is one issue for Dricus, kind of, when it comes to defending takedowns. And this is something that we'll look at much more in depth later in the video when we analyze their striking, which I do have a lot to say on that front. But something that Dricus does a lot is he's always used high guard, a real tight high guard. Obviously, like we talked about earlier, in the Sean Strickland fight, he had his hands glued to his eyebrows. He was parrying every single jab very well. But, you know, in the Israel Adesanya fight, exact same thing. He always has such a tight high guard. In the Robert Whittaker fight, Whittaker got in on one very good takedown against Dricus because he had the high guard. Obviously, the easiest way to stop a takedown early is just dig underhooks, all right? Jack Della Maddalena, what problem did he have before the Belal Muhammad fight? Because of his high guard, everybody would beat him to the hips. What adjustment did he make in the Belal Muhammad fight? Well, when every single time that Belal pressured, he started lowering his hands to be able to get underhooks to stop the takedown. But for Dricus, especially against somebody who shoots as fast as Khamzat, this can be a huge area for Khamzat to take advantage of. Here's kind of the problem with that, though. Khamzat doesn't have reactive takedowns. Obviously, like, what's a good example of a reactive takedown? George St. Pierre had the best reactive takedown the sport's ever seen. He was so good at, as soon as you extended it, as soon as you threw with anything, he would duck underneath it and use whatever you were doing to beat you to the hips and take you down. That's not how Khamzat approaches his fights. Khamzat, it's so interesting. It's almost like he has two modes. It's either, I am going to grapple fuck you right now, or we're striking. That's kind of been what Khamzat does, all right? He's either shooting right off the bat, taking you down, and trying to finish you right then and there, or he's going to strike with you. There aren't really an in-between, and I think that there needs to be an in-between. I think Khamzat needs to use his striking to be setting up takedowns throughout the fight, which, again, we will look at the striking very in depth, but the reason I say this is because DDP has shown very good tendencies on the ground. Obviously, a lot of people look at the Derek Brunson fight, which was not a great showing. Obviously, that was the fight where Dricus pulls mount, turtles giving up his back. He got pancaked really bad trying to shoot on his knees. But interestingly enough, Dricus actually talks about this fight as a moment where right after his coaches sat him down and told him, look, you want to be a championship level fighter? A performance like that ain't gonna cut it, they told him. And he tried to really change that since then. And I mean, he absolutely has. I mean, obviously, look, what are the two things Khamzat historically looks to do on the ground? Take your back, rear naked choke, and darces. Those are the things that we see him go for. Obviously, I do think he's capable of more. I think his grappling match with Luke Rockhold is all you need to see to know that he's actually very well-rounded on the ground. I mean, fucking pulls guard against Luke Rockhold, shoots a leg lock, uses it to sweep. But, you know, regardless, in the UFC, that is what he's looked to do. Well, when we look at the Robert Whittaker fight, right? Robert Whittaker gets in on a takedown because of Dricus' high guard. They hit the ground. Dricus immediately locks in a tight guillotine, forcing Whittaker to jump over the guard to escape it. Dricus then gets his back to the fence, and he looks to stand up. Now, why did Whittaker give up his back to Khamzat when he got taken down? Because he got up without the underhook. What does Dricus do right here? He shoots the underhook and then stands up. Listen, it doesn't matter. I don't care which way or that way, whether you're gay or you're straight or you're bisexual or you're sexually attracted to Dricus Du Plessis. I don't know what you are, but what you cannot deny, you cannot give up your back with an underhook. You can't do it. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. I mean, look at this sequence right here. Colby Covington's trying to take down Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards tries to step around to take his back. This was just a complete mistake, and he immediately gets reversed and ends up into this position. Why? Because he tried to take Colby's back while Colby had an underhook. It just doesn't work. Even in the Brunson fight, where obviously, again, there was that one sequence where he pulled mount and then definitely gave up his back. Look at this sequence here from the bottom. He shoots the underhook and then gets up. This is just proper fundamentals, and there is no back take from here. Of course, though, there is danger of a Darce choke. You know what I mean? You grab the underhook, your opponent slithers their arm to the outside, now you're in a Darce. However, just roll the clip from the last time we talked about this.
Front headlock crunch position right here. Now, obviously, Kevin Holland, say what you will about the guy, understands the danger from this position. So he immediately grabs an underhook right here with this arm. Now, with this underhook, it's going to be really difficult to hit a Darce from here. And the reason for that is, the mechanics of a Darce choke is that obviously you have your wrist on one side of the person's throat and the other side's getting choked by their own arm going across and their own shoulder is pushing into their throat. But with the underhook, it just buys a little bit of space right here. And obviously, Holland knows this. And as Khamzat goes for the Darce, he just relaxes here in this position. Like, obviously, this is not going to feel good. Obviously, he is getting choked. Obviously, this is going to count as effective grappling per the judging criteria at the end of the day. But it's very, very common that guys will sort of bait you to go for a Darce while they have an underhook because you're not going to get a finish and you're going to gas out your arms. And you see, Khamzat knows this as well, so he comes to his knees in order to beat the underhook, and now he has the Darce choke way tighter. So Holland immediately starts moving, starts scrambling, gets the underhook back, and then he chills out again. He stops moving because he knows as long as he has this underhook, he's safe. Now, what he didn't count on, though, was then Khamzat using a butterfly hook to sweep him over, again beating the underhook. And now this is very tight, and now he finishes it.
So with all of this being said, again, Dricus needs to be very aware of the fact that Khamzat's gonna be hunting for his back and hunting for Darce chokes. But again, I am not scared personally of getting subbed in the first round. I am gonna be aware that that's a possibility, but I'm scared of being put into this washing machine that Khamzat can put you in on the ground. Here's the problem, though, again. Dricus Du Plessis seems like he has the tendency to stay safe from this position. So what does Khamzat need to do? Well, most likely he's going to need to be taking Dricus down over the entirety of the fight. I don't think one takedown is going to be enough to do this. I think he's going to most likely need to do this multiple times to win multiple rounds. And I think the way to do this is to strike with Dricus. This is something that Khabib said that Khamzat needs to do. Frankly, a lot of people were saying Khabib was an idiot for saying this. I didn't listen to the full statement, so I don't know exactly what he said. But here's what I will say. Khamzat is a very dangerous striker. He is. He's fast. He has knockout power. He can switch stances very fluidly. He can throw, I would say, a decent variety of strikes. The issue for Khamzat on the feet is that he does suck defensively. He sucks defensively. The reason he sucks defensively is because he is so dominant in training and he is so dominant throughout every single fight he's ever had. He's never needed to really develop high-level defense. He hasn't needed to. He runs through everybody. But the second he does face some opposition, he's very hittable. He does not defend leg kicks very well. He essentially tries to answer the phone and kind of turn into you with every single punch upstairs, and this does leave him open for straight shots right down the middle. It will open him up for body kicks after a combination, which is obviously something that Dricus is very capable of doing. We'll throw a 1-2 upstairs, hard body kick. Khamzat is going to be answering the phone way up here. His midsection's gonna be open. All right, there is a lot that somebody like Dricus can take advantage of against Khamzat over long stretches of striking on the feet. Dricus is just better than he is on the feet. However, Dricus does need to respect Khamzat's power and his speed. I mean, he does. Offensively, Khamzat is dangerous. What Khamzat needs to do is constantly mix the takedowns and the striking. He cannot have long stretches of striking. He needs to throw a combination upstairs, get Dricus to cover up. As soon as those hands go up, you're shooting and getting to the hips and then taking him down and then making him work really hard to try to stand back up. Constantly threatening submissions, threatening the back take, make him work. The thing about Dricus is he does have good cardio, but there are periods in his fights where he needs time to recover. You look at the Israel Adesanya fight, there was a moment in round 2 where Dricus makes Adesanya run into a takedown. Adesanya tries to scramble back up, Dricus retakes him back down, takes his back, threatens the choke, keeps him there for a long time. Adesanya eventually gets back up, and Dricus is clearly gassed. He's very tired after that sequence, and he needed a good amount of time to recover and get his air back so he can keep going. Obviously, Dricus has an amazing ability to keep pushing. He has very good recovery. He can go all 5 rounds, but, he's not going to put a fucking Marab pace on you, all right? He's going to need stretches to catch his air back. And if Khamzat can, again, constantly mix up the striking and the takedowns and constantly make Dricus work, I think that's his best path to victory right there. Again, the problem is, historically, this isn't really how Khamzat fights at all. I mean, again, I don't know what adjustments either of them are going to make for this exact fight. Nobody does unless you're in both of their camps somehow. I don't know. Is Khamzat going to go out there and just go for broke at the very start and shoot and try to grapple fuck him? And if that doesn't work, try to strike with him over the rest of the fight like he did against Gilbert Burns or kind of like he did against Usman? I mean, I don't know. But what I do know is this. If there are prolonged stretches on the feet, I think Dricus murders him. I think Dricus kills him. I think Dricus is so much more technical on the feet, and I think that Khamzat defensively is not good enough. I think he's going to be getting tagged, and I think there's a lot of openings. If Khamzat gets him down in the very first round, can he finish him that very first round? I mean, it's possible, yes, but based on what we've seen historically, I do think it's very unlikely unless Khamzat has made massive improvements. So I think that Khamzat needs to use his skill set in a way we haven't quite seen him do before. Again, mix up the striking to the takedowns constantly. Get DDP to cover up with the strikes and then get to the hips every single time. And if he can do that, and he can do that for at least 3 rounds, I think he has a very good chance of winning this fight. But again, it's just one of those things. It depends on what either of their game plans are, and it depends on who can execute better. I think that based on Khamzat's abilities, I do think this is his fight to lose if he does not use the correct game plan. Overall, what do I think is most likely to happen? Most likely, I don't think Khamzat's going to use that game plan like he should, and I do think DDP will probably take it in the later rounds. But I think with Khamzat's skill set, I think I can devise a game plan for him that would make this his fight to lose.